Our Father, I thank you for this opportunity you allowed me to have to come here to offer up a prayer on behalf of our city. Lord, I pray that all decisions that are made today would be thought out thoroughly, that you would be involved in the process. I thank you for each one that's here, that's representing our city. I thank you for those that are in the crowd. Lord, I pray that your will be done, and we ask your blessings upon this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please continue to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Smith.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we will consider the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask any questions. Does anyone from the audience wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Council? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No? Let it reflect that it was a 4-0 vote. Audience oral and written communications. We welcome public comments on any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. And we ask that this forum be used in a positive and constructive manner. Persons addressing the council should first state their name and area of residence and the matter of the business they wish to have discussed and the organization if they're representing one. And I would ask that when you come to the podium, if you have a comment, to fill out a speaker's card and to let us know your name and your area of residence. Do we have any comments from the public this evening? Now see, you made me read all that for nothing. All right. Public hearing. This time we're going to conduct public hearing number 2 to receive public comments regarding the transition of the city from at-large elections for members of the city council to be district-based elections for members of the city council, the time frame of this transition, and the composition of city council districts. At this time, I'd like to open the hearing.
Madam Chairman, I would like to introduce again Justina Aziz. I think we're all familiar with her now, and she'll help us conduct that hearing from Richards, Watson, and Gershon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the City Council, good evening. I will start by giving a summary of the staff report, and then we'll take any questions from you or the public. As you are aware, and as we discussed last time, the City Council is currently elected at large, and on July 24th, 2017, the city received a letter from an attorney, Mr. Kevin Shankman, of the law firm of Shankman and Hughes, alleging that the city's at-large election system violates the California Voting Rights Act. The letter threatens a lawsuit if the city doesn't change its election system to a district-based election system. On September 5th, 2017, the City Council adopted a resolution of intent to transition from an at-large election system of city council members to a district-based election system. The city also adopted a resolution establishing the criteria for drawing those districts, and I will go ahead and list those criteria just so that the public is aware. Number 1, each council district shall contain a nearly equal population as required by law. Number 2, each council district shall be drawn in a manner that complies with the Federal Voting Rights Act. Number 3, no council district shall be drawn with race as a predominant factor in violation of the principles established by the United States Supreme Court. Number 4, each council district shall consist of contiguous territory in as compact a form as possible. Number 5, each council district shall respect communities of interest as much as possible. Number 6, each council district boundary shall follow visible, natural, and man-made geographical and topographical features as much as possible. Number 7, each council district boundary shall respect the previous choices of the voters by avoiding the pairing of incumbents in the same electoral district, insofar as this doesn't conflict with federal or state law. And number 8, each council districts known to be areas of higher than average population growth in the 2 to 5 years following the establishment of these council boundaries may be underpopulated within the population deviation allowed by law, and that population deviation is 10%. Elections Code Section 10,010 requires that the city hold 2 public hearings before starting to draw the maps. And so the city couldn't really start drawing these draft maps until we conducted the first public hearing on September 5th and this second public hearing. So the point of those 2 public hearings is to get input from the public about the composition of the district boundaries and the district map. And for example, last time we had some input about the prison population, and that was important to take into account in drawing the districts. And so that's why we have these public hearings. This is the second hearing under Elections Code 10,010 to receive those comments. After this hearing, the city will hold 2 public hearings. Once it draws the district map, the proposed district maps, and publishes them. The city has retained National Demographics Corporation to assist in drawing those maps. And the public basically can then comment on those maps in public hearing number 3 and number 4. And this concludes the staff report. I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence was received.
All right, are there any comments from the audience in this public hearing concerning this?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, Honorable Council members and city staff. I'm Barbara Reynolds, law professor 30 years, paralegal LDA 47 years, including the law firms of Manat, Phelps & Phillips, President Clinton's personal lawyer Mickey Cantor's law firm, and Adams Duke, President Richard Nixon's law firm, and a UCLA grad analyst and Tehachapi resident 44 years, I'm glad to say. I would ask that the record of this meeting, public hearing number 2, be recorded and preserved. For judicial review, should a challenge be made to the entire procedural process in the intended transition from at-large elections for members of the City Council to district-based elections for members of the City Council, that is redistricting of Tehachapi espoused to be the result of disparate treatment of the Hispanic population in Tehachapi. Let the record also reflect that the citizens have 3 minutes to comment on the second most significant change in Tehachapi in the past 44 years I've been a resident. I find it startling after 44 years that the Hispanic population has deemed Tehachapi racist, in that such populace has a good number of jobs in all school districts where Hispanic Mary Lou Vachon is a school secretary and former Tehachapi City Council person. And the Hispanic populace has jobs in all of city and government in Kern County at the highest levels, assuming their competency. Be that as it may, there is still a question pending from public hearing number 1 concerning the identity and apparent secrecy of the Tehachapi resident who must reside, mandatory language, must reside in Tehachapi City to be a plaintiff in any potential class action lawsuit against the city of Tehachapi. With all due respect, why does my analysis conclude that it is former Tehachapi City Council member Mary Lou Vachon who is the secret plaintiff in this potential class action against the city of Tehachapi for racism, and who lost her seat in the last city election? Because thou doth protest too loudly. At public hearing number 1 on this matter, before the hearings even started, and a mumbling word was even said, it was Mary Lou Vachon who injected herself too soon in disavowing her complicity in claiming Tehachapi as racist. Mary Lou Vachon was the first one on her feet at the last council meeting to claim she never called Tehachapi racist, but indeed is she who promotes the redistricting effort. Well, to no one Well, no one said nor even thought she was the secret plaintiff in the class action suit until she protested too loudly. So rather than move away from Ms. Vachon in her too quick disavowal as the secret plaintiff, she moved me toward her only in the belief that it is in fact she accusing Tehachapi of racism. Her word and disavowal is not gospel. Bear in mind that there must be mandatory language, a named resident in such lawsuit from Tehachapi against the city of Tehachapi for racism. That is the major premise, to bring in such a class action lawsuit claiming racism. It's analogous to Mary Ann Crawford, who was the Los Angeles plaintiff in the Brown versus Board of Education busing class action, with which I worked when our Century City law firm were the Los Angeles co-counsel in that class action with the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. There had to be a named identifiable plaintiff in that action, as is the requirement here. It is a despicable claim to leave here that Tehachapi is racist. Moreover, having helped build a Beverly Hills Century City law firm with my former husband's name on it, I am not the least bit dissuaded by a Malibu firm whose espoused formidable character was raised on at least 3 occasions at public hearing number 1 by the city attorney, apparently to impress and dissuade. With all due respect, it was neither. Why then is the issue of who the Tehachapi resident is still shrouded in secrecy? If we assume that Ms. Vachon is a secret Tehachapi claimant, claiming racism, then I analyze that it is she whose apparent intent is to try to reclaim a seat on the city council from which she was previously received a no confidence vote and was voted out of the city council by the same Tehachapi voters she apparently hopes to represent again. She will then replace one of 2 council seats that will term out in 2018, and word is that Michelle Vance moved from being a city staffer to her county job to position herself to run for city council in 2018. Well, good for her. That result will certainly raise the specter of a supermajority vote being in place to vote consistently along the same line as is the current simple majority 3-2 vote consistently along the same lines when Mary Vachon was previously on the council. If Hispanics are being discriminated against, then it was surely on her previous watch as well, and nothing was raised about Tehachapi being racist during the entirety of Mary Lou Vachon's former council term. Most historical vote in 44 years would only require a simple vote 3-2 rather than a supermajority. That intended council decision of a simple majority 3-2 vote flies in the face of the same council that swiftly exercised its discretionary authority to change a long-standing city ordinance wherein it now requires a supermajority 4-1 to ever remove the city manager from his position, even for malfeasance or misfeasance. That supermajority vote was real swift. In fact, it never came before the council, but rather done in closed sessions, presumably. I would urge the council to consider the efficacy of such a simple majority vote versus a supermajority vote on the second most historical vote in the last 44 years in Tehachapi. I'm certainly smart enough to know that, and I trust the current city council is. Given the shrouded secrecy of who the plaintiff is, claiming Tehachapi is racist, this whole process has no real allegations of the serious charges of racism, and hence can only be interpreted as politically motivated because no one is coming forward about the serious charges to support such an insidious claim of racism by Tehachapi. All the while, the council forces an apparent political transition with no evidence of racism to bottom this political transition from at-large elections in which Mary Lou Vachon, former city council, was voted out of office, and former city staffer Michelle Vance, who was now positioned to run the council. In the absence of no evidence whatsoever of Tehachapi being racist, the result sought to be obtained here has to be politically motivated and not based on an alleged claim of racism where the plaintiff can't even be identified. It is equally arguable that the plaintiff cannot be identified because there is no empirical data to point to racism by Tehachapi. My analysis concludes that this historical shift in political makeup of Tehachapi has nothing to do with the community, its political redistricting, which is not in the best interest of Tehachapi generally, nor the Hispanic community particularly. It's in the best interest of politicians once again and lawyers fees. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Who wants to address that?
Well, you want
Or do you want to?
Do you want to address it now, or do you want to wait and see what other?
Okay, we'll wait. Anyone else? You're next.
Charles White, city resident. While I think this is a sad thing that has happened to our city, I do believe that the Hispanic population has been very well represented by this council, by former councils, and by former school boards and other boards. And my main point I wanted to ask was, will this also affect boards that are appointed by city council, such as the planning commission?
Okay, thank you. We'll respond to these in a moment.
My name is Carl Garrett. I'm a 41-year resident of the city of Tehachapi. My business location is next to Charles for 20 years. Anyway, I realize this is whether a federal or a state requirement. You know what? One thing I'd like to see in this is people like Mr. Hecky, who does not live in our city, has never lived in our city, but takes out a room in a rented location called carpetbagging. If I recall from my school days many years ago, carpetbagging was done after the Civil War, when a bunch of Northerners went to the South because the Southerners could not vote or run for public office. That's a carpetbagger. But a person moving who does not live in our city, who thinks he lives in our city, does not. And now people like him could move into one of these districts. I realize that they say the Hispanic population doesn't have a seat or very few seats, but I think we have Hispanics living in every district there is in this town, or would be every district. I guess they say over the tracks is low income. You know what? There's a lot of retirees over the tracks have been living here for a long, long time. I guess our lowest income would be the ones across the street from Home Depot and maybe out by the old Mexican market, the old market out on Ashland. But I think that's probably our lowest. But everybody else in the city seems to be equal in every way, shape, or form. And I really hope that we don't have people that don't live in our city, or maybe lives in this district and thinks that they can vote over in this district. That ought to be addressed. You've got to live, resident, sleep, lay your head down at night in the district in which you live, and not come from another district hoping to get elected in another district.
We're almost out of time.
Other church. Mr. Hecky, I wish you would move into that mobile home if you want to represent me. Sell your house or rent it out and move into that mobile home so that you can live in the district that you probably would be in.
Okay. Any other public comments?
Haven't been to a couple of meetings lately. I'm just David Butler, resident of the city. What have I missed? Oh, anyway, that was a question I had that kind of brought up was, do the city council people running for each district have to live in that district? Is that considered part of the, okay, I didn't realize that. Wanted to find out. And as far as the prisoners out at the prison, they don't vote. They can't vote, so they're included, if I'm not mistaken, with city population based on certain other things that encourage the city to have a prison. But they have no vote, so that would be an issue. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Romero. I'm here with my wife Nancy. We live in here in Keene. We don't live in Tehachapi. But we've been here for, I lived for like 40 years with my wife, another 25 or so. But I read something about the paper, about there being districts now for council members and stuff like that, is that correct? And then also something about the Chicano population. First of all, I want to say that we feel, I can't speak for everybody that's Latino, but I just can say that with the friends and families that I have around here, we've been feeling very comfortable with the representation, political and police representation. We feel that, you know what, it's pretty good. The thing is that as we go into following this new law of representation, that I think it's a good thing because we're poised for growth. If Tehachapi was to kind of stay as is, then I can say that, you know what, let's maintain the structure as it's going because it seems to be working well for everybody. But now that it seems like we are going to grow whether we like it or not, and so I think that having districts, that it would also give more issues can be more defined and more thought could be put in by having people think out as to what it is that we need here. So I think political representation has to be inclusive, not exclusive. But that's all I have to say, but I just want to say that, you know what, we're moving on and everything, but I do want to, for me, applaud that we've been here like 30, 40 years and we have seen the growth and everything is good, but if we are going to grow, then we welcome that. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm George Sandy. I've been here for ages, I guess, about over 30 years now. The only outcome I see from redistricting would be to draw lines of demarcation between different areas of the city and possibly more areas of influence here than over here as far as the political spectrum. I think that that we already have our city redistricted in essence because the people that are concerned about the city go to the meetings, planning commission, council, take part, active part in the city direction. So I think I can speak for myself. I feel very comfortable in any part of this city. And I have friends all around. And the only thing that separates one group from the other is public apathy. A lot of people don't even read the local newspapers. They don't listen to area news. They don't want to discuss the politics or the news. And I think that, in essence, has already created the districts we have. I think that's pretty well spread around the whole city. It applies to the whole city. So I'm quite comfortable with the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Good evening, my name is James Roberts, I live in the city. And it's kind of ironic to me that we're accepting comments and we're all just, to me, wasting our breath because it appears to be cast in stone. Am I correct in this? I mean, you're going to pass this?
No, the council has to vote on this.
Okay, so we can stay a general law city with the system still the same as it is?
You can make your comments and try to convince them otherwise.
I see. So, in other words, we would have some recourse to keep this from happening? Is that true?
You can make your comments.
Just make comments.
You can sue. I think Barbara talked about suing. Sue my comments.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Ms. Reynolds' comments were very germane to this issue. I just wondered if there could be active upon it. It's just going to be swept aside and it's going to be voted.
We're going to comment on the audience comments after you're done and the council comments, and then I will have the attorney address those comments.
So are we answering questions from people that are
Yes.
up there on the podium? Okay, so my question was, what recourse do we have? We do have some recourse, so it's not necessarily cast in stone. And how much time do we have to comply with this? How much time do we have to comply?
We have, what is it, 40 days from when we receive the letter?
We had 45 days from the day we received the letter to decide whether to go to districts or not.
And then we have like 90 days after that, do we not, to actually implement it?
It's 45 days from July 24th. And then once we adopted the resolution of intent to transition, which the city adopted at the last meeting, we have 90 days to adopt the ordinance establishing the districts.
And that's the California Voting Rights Act. That's not anything we've imposed on
No,
ourselves.
no, this is something we're faced with, nothing that's being foisted upon us. And I was just currently just, how we currently violate any voting rights act. Is that, and that's why I should be elsewhere. Does anybody know how we're currently violating any voting rights acts?
I think probably the council, I can't speak for each member of the council, but I think as a group, they probably don't feel we violated anything. I think Barbara raised some major issues about the whole concept of the Voting Rights Act and how it's being applied here. But, you know, legally, that's extra legally. Legally, there may be some violations.
And if we become a district, voting by districts, are we still going to be a general law city? I guess, actually, so a general law city. And so I just had questions, and it seems to me like we're taking comments, but hopefully they have some effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? One more.
Another question came up, David Butler. Are these districts being set up based on population or area? Because like the area north of the airport, or around the airport, and then the Capitol Hills area, there's not too many residents, as opposed to say, south, north end. So is it based on population?
She'll answer you.
So yes, it's based on population as well as the area. So that's the list of criteria that was in the resolution from the September 5th hearing. So every city council district has to be as nearly equal in population with a little bit of deviation. So for example, you can't have a district that has 200 people and another district that has 5,000 people. They have to be sort of nearly equal. And with respect to the geographical area, you can't have, the districts have to be contiguous and they have to be compact. You can't have a district that sort of has different spots throughout the city. This district has to be in one area and it has to be compact. So you can't have something that sort of stretches out. Sometimes you get really weird, weirdly blind districts, so they have to be to a certain extent compact. So both of those actually apply.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? I'm going to take council comments and then I'm going to turn it over to the attorneys to answer some of the questions that were brought up. Yes, ma'am. Quick.
Tina Cunningham, I'm a resident of Tehachapi, just down the street. And I'm a journalist, and in the course of writing a story about this that's currently in the loop, I interviewed both Mr. Shankman and Ms. Aziz, and they both assured me that the city is not required by law to do the districting. Mr. Shankman has to prove that there's been a disparity. He has to prove it. And so far what he's done is some rather shoddy data mining and come up with two names. And he's looking for people with Hispanic names who have lost elections. And there's an overwhelmingly number of people in the city who are Hispanic heritage who have served on the city council and on various commissions. And that's what I found out. So be the loop.
Thank you. Okay, council comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I think one of the concerns that I have was hit upon by several people tonight pertaining to the prison population. And I would just like to ask Mr. Schroeder whether we have been able to define or hone in a little bit tighter on whether or not that prison population, one, will be eligible to vote in any election going forward, and two, if they are going to be head counted, if you will, into the districting process. Because if you look at our numbers, just using rough numbers, and I don't know where the population stands between 9 and 10,000, if we divide that by 5 districts, and knowing what the prison population is right now, they would actually have more than 1/5 of the total from a population perspective. And I think that we should pay very, very close attention to that. The outcome may be something that we're not prepared for. That's really my only comment that I have, and my concern and my question tonight. Let's go ahead and address each council question
Yes.
that might come up, and then we
Yes.
do the others. But have you looked into that?
Yes, so we are in the process of actually determining the actual population of the prison, but the prison population would not be counted in, they cannot vote. And so if we were to take them into account, they can basically form their own district, but nobody would be running from that district. So and they're not going to be counted in the population of the districts, and the districts are going to be formed excluding the prison population.
Okay, thanks.
Good, okay.
Regarding population of districts, it's going to be population of total citizens, the population by registered voters within each district. So I think that's a good, you could have a district with all large families, you could have a district with seniors with no children, and equal population, but they would have maybe more registered voters in the seniors versus young families in the other district. Understand?
Right.
Thank you.
So the requirement under federal law, which was adopted in the CDR, and it's one of the requirements are adopted, is that it's total population. So you have to divide it up by total population. And so it includes the people that can vote, the people that cannot vote, the children, everyone. So you may have different numbers of registered voters per district, but as long as the total population is equal, that's what's required.
Thank you.
Dennis?
So the area of some districts will be bigger than others, correct?
Just stay there.
The geographical area?
Yeah.
Yes. Because some parts of the city may be a little less populated than other parts. So to get that total equal population, it may have to stretch a district that may be more rural or doesn't have as many residents. It may have to be a bigger district to just collect that number of population that's required to form equal populations for every district. Does that sort of make sense?
Now, it's hard for me to see that each district could be equally sprinkled with ethnic people. You know what I mean? There's certain areas of the city that are not that way. They're still sprinkled, but then there's heavier areas that are. So how does that get taken into consideration?
The requirement is that they're equal populations, total population. So we cannot, by law, gerrymander, and so race is not going to be taken into account in drawing the districts. We cannot draw a district around a specific racial minority group. But at the same time, for example, the law requires that you don't divide a district just to divide a specific minority group and to decrease their voting power. And so, to an extent, race is a factor in drawing districts, and that you're supposed to keep these communities of interest together, but at the same time, we're not drawing the districts around race. Race is not the predominant factor in drawing these districts. It's based on total population, geographical areas, and all the rest of the criteria that we listed in the resolution.
Then what's the purpose of it?
So, in theory, in a city that has a considerable minority population, you can form districts where that minority population is a considerable part of that district, and they can have basically greater voting power, and they can elect their candidate of choice. The problem is that under the Federal Voting Rights Act, there's a requirement to state a claim under the Federal Voting Rights Act that the minority group is big enough and compact enough to form a district. That's under the Federal Voting Rights Act. The issue is that under the California Voting Rights Act, that requirement is eliminated. And so the minority group in question does not have to be big enough to form a district, and it doesn't have to be compact enough to form a district. And yet, it requires cities, if there's racially polarized voting, to go to districts. And so, sometimes the minority group is not compact in one district. They're just spread out through different districts.
As it should be, yeah. And these folks that are trying to say that, I'm not going to use the word racist, I don't think that's appropriate, but that there's not an equality in the way people are treated here, or the opportunities that they have. If this went to court, would we be in court with, would we be challenging the people that brought these allegations to us, or would we be challenging the law, or both, or what? How does that work?
So the intent to discriminate on the part of the voters or on the part of the city is not required to state a claim under the California Voting Rights Act. So it's not really about cities being racist. It's more about the voting preferences of the minority group versus the voting preferences of everybody else. If the minority group is voting for candidates, and these candidates are not getting elected because the rest of the electorate is voting for all the other candidates, that's what racially polarized voting is, and that's really what's required to state a claim under the California Voting Rights Act. And so the argument would be whether there is racially polarized voting in the city or not. It's not about an intent to discriminate at all. That's not required to state a claim under this law. And so that would be the main issue in a lawsuit.
Well, shouldn't that issue be proved before redistricting is shoved down our throat? I mean, it seems we're getting the cart before the horse here. And the logical person, it makes no sense. Because everybody has a right to run for council, no matter where they live, as long as they live in the city. So what stops them? You know, what stopped Phil, or what stopped me, or what stopped, you know, the other council members and whatever? You know, nothing stopped. But if there's no candidates, like there wasn't when I ran, of Latino heritage, then what are we supposed to do about that? Drag them in here? Stick them with a sign somewhere, you know, jump up and down in the corner like the pizza guy? It's got to be the will of the people to do that. And the will of this council has done that, and the councils before. And I can't think, maybe one council that I can remember 20 years, 25 years, that hasn't had a Latino person, at least one. So this is beyond ridiculous in my mind, you know, and maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm not stupid either. And I see dollars here is what I see.
Just to clarify, I understand that, I sort of understand the frustration, and a lot of people are frustrated with the California Voting Rights Act, but just one thing to clarify is that the law is not about whether the minority candidates are getting elected, it's about the choices of the minority group. So, for example, it doesn't have to be that the Latino preferred candidate is Latino. The Latino preferred candidate could be anyone. It's just based on the data. So the fact that there's no Latino on city council doesn't necessarily mean that the Latinos didn't elect their candidate of choice. So the law is not about protecting candidates of that minority group. It's about protecting the voters of that minority group.
Okay, well, the Latinos voted just the same way everybody else did. This is their choice, is it not?
That would involve doing an analysis of the past elections to see how the different groups voted. And so that would involve more analysis of these elections.
And before we start doing this to people, we ought to have that kind of analysis, in my way of thinking. You can't assume that I'm going to go punch somebody in the face before I even do it, and I don't even know. You can't assume that. You've got to wait for me to either state it or do it before I take the consequences for it. This is ridiculous. This is just totally ridiculous. And I can't make sense of it whatsoever.
Let me jump in for just a second. We're on a timeline. The law puts us on a timeline. You've heard what it is, 45 days from when we get the letter, and then 90 days from the adoption of the resolution. I would venture to say there's no time to do that analysis that you're talking about. And if we get sued and we lose, everybody who's been sued has lost. There have been several cities paying huge amounts of legal fees, and it is about legal fees, huge amounts of legal fees to the plaintiff's attorney, $4 million at Palmdale. And so we can't wait for that to happen either. They've got us between a rock and a hard place, like it or not, and I think, I can't say I disagree with anything you said. And I suspect Justina doesn't either. And so I hope we're not, we're the messengers, and so I hope we're not being hit over the head because of that. Ultimately, it's up to you if you want to go forward with this or not.
Well, I don't think, in my mind, I'm not going to put the city in that kind of a financial burden. But isn't it coincidental that we had so little time before these avenues could be investigated? This is fraud, as far as I'm concerned, and it's fraud by the attorneys that brought this before us. And it reminds me of Walmart.
Let's be careful about
it's my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Let's don't bring names and personalities into this. I mean, general comments are fine, but I don't want us getting off track and perhaps slandering somebody.
I'm sorry, Tom, I'm more still. Thank you.
I've heard people in the audience keep saying Mary Lou's name, and I know the attorney is going to address that in a minute, but I know her, and I know that she is not the secret plaintiff. I know that an attorney at some point who wants to make money has found people in cities of ethnic minorities who have lost elections. She just happened to be it. And they used her name without her permission. So, don't go egg her house or do terrible things because she's innocent in this case. And I'll let you address those questions now.
Well, I heard 3 legal questions out of all those comments. And there were a lot of other comments. But I'd like Justina to address them, and she may have others that she would like to address.
Okay.
One had to do with, does the plaintiff have to be a resident in the city? A second has to do with Charles's question about appointed agencies that we have, such as the Planning Commission. Do they have to be? It's about racially polarized voting, so I don't suspect that the Planning Commission comes into this, but I'd like you to address that. And Tina's comment about Mr. Schenkman having to prove his case before he can accuse us of racially polarized voting. I think we kind of addressed that a little bit, but those were the three I came up with, and there may be others that you saw, Justina. So if you would answer those three or comment on them, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. As to the first question about the plaintiff and who the plaintiff can be, the letter we received from Mr. Schenkman lists a plaintiff, and the plaintiff is Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, which clearly is not a voter in the city. It's an entity. And this is an issue because under the CVRA, to have standing, you have to be a person, a voter that resides in the city. This issue came up in a pending lawsuit now with the city of Rancho Cucamonga as to whether Southwest Voter Registration Education Project has standing to bring a claim under the California Voting Rights Act. The case is still pending. There is no Court of Appeals opinion on this issue, and it's sort of an open question of law because you can, the plaintiff would argue that there may be an associational standing, that as an association, this entity can represent its members in bringing this lawsuit. And so this is sort of an open question, and it would require us or the city litigating, if it chooses to do so, as one of the issues, this issue of whether this entity has standing or not. From what I've seen in other cases, plaintiffs do not have a problem finding, the plaintiff's attorney doesn't have a problem finding a potential plaintiff to name as an individual, in addition to Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, in filing a lawsuit. So that's sort of as to the first question. There's no clear answer on this issue. We were litigating it in the Rancho Cucamonga case, and that hasn't gone on appeal or anything, at least not yet. As to the second issue of the planning commissions, the California Voting Rights Act has to do with elected officials. So it doesn't apply to planning commission or planning commissioners. This is about, basically for the city of Tehachapi, it's about city council. So it doesn't affect other agencies. And as to Mr. Schenkman proving his case, yes, he has the burden of proof as the plaintiff to prove that there's racially polarized voting in the city of Tehachapi. And that involves bringing in expert witnesses on both sides. The city would have its own experts, plaintiff would have his own experts talking about the election history of the city and whether there's racially polarized voting and whether the candidates of choice of the minority group got elected or not. And so yes, he has the burden, and he has to show that in litigation. That would also involve the city being involved in litigation and bringing its own experts to counter the arguments and the assertions of the other side's experts.
Council, on the issue of standing to sue, can I ask one
I need
question?
you to come to the microphone, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the issue of standing to sue, I think I heard her say that they factored into their analysis of who plaintiffs would be those that lost an election. Mary Lou didn't lose an election because she was Hispanic. That sweet darling was a secretary. There were just certain things that she did not do as a council person, and that the city of Tehachapi, including Hispanic voters, made a conscious decision to choose someone else. So their major premise is false. That if this is all you got, that she lost an election, oh please. She lost the election not because of her race. It was never an issue. It was her ability to perform as a former city council member. She just wasn't reelected. Thank you. With all due respect to her, I love her.
I think I'd like to, she's not here to defend herself, but I think she pointed that out and stated that
Yes.
very same thing at the last meeting. She stated that herself.
Yeah.
She said, I'm sorry?
She said she heard her.
Oh, okay. So just so the audience knows that Mary Lou's not here to speak for herself, but she came up and said, I lost it because I didn't get enough votes, it wasn't because I was Hispanic. Those were her words.
She said you didn't work hard enough.
Yes.
That I didn't work hard enough to get the
Yeah.
number of votes that I needed. That's what she said. Don't quote me, this is secondhand, obviously, but we all heard that.
But the
So,
attorney is basing his lawsuit upon a false premise.
Correct.
That she lost the election because she was Hispanic.
I think we all agree on that.
And that's false.
Yes.
Okay. One more.
Mayor?
Yes. Yes.
The other fellow that Mr. Shankman mentioned, his name was Felipe or Phil Calzado. This was in 1996. He ran for city council. And I tried high and low to find someone who knew him, and turns out that John Hammond remembered him. And he said that he was a nice guy, he was a deputy sheriff, but he wasn't a local. A lot of people didn't know him, and he didn't really put a lot of effort into the election campaign. So those are these two examples from Mr. Shankman, and neither of them is quite valid.
Wow.
You know, he chose Hispanics. I just recently did one of those silly Ancestry.com things. It says I'm European. I suppose if I didn't get elected to something, which I have not always won an election, that they could say, well, the Europeans weren't represented. It just so happens that that's what he has chosen. So we have to live with it. Well, we didn't necessarily have to live with it, but we have to go through these procedures. And I think pretty much all of us agree with everything all of you are saying, but anything else? Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say, Houston?
I'm going to close the public hearing. And we have no action to take on this. And I appreciate all of you commenting. And I have to say once again, as I have many times in my long life, that your fight is with Sacramento. And that sounds like a cop-out. I don't mean it to be. We don't like these things any more than any of the rest of you do. So, find some new candidates. Yeah, I know. All right.
I'll volunteer.
Moving on, police department reports.
Good evening, council members. Item I have this evening is an emergency abatement that we conducted at 1004 Chris Lane. Pursuant to our municipal code, emergency abatements may be conducted by the city when it isn't in the interest of public health and or public safety. This code also requires a hearing before the city council following such abatement in order to determine whether the code enforcement officer's abatement was appropriate. On April 25th of this year, the property was inspected and determined to be vacant with dead landscaping and no water service to the dwelling. A notice of violation was posted for the dead landscaping. A copy of the notice of violation was mailed to the homeowner of record. On August 1st this year, a follow-up inspection was conducted. At that time, the dead vegetation on the property had grown to the point of constituting a fire hazard. The property was still vacant at that time, as the most recent occupant was in custody for a pending criminal case for maintaining a residence for the sales of controlled substance. August 8, 2017, an abatement warrant was executed on the property. For the use of a private contractor, the dead and overgrown vegetation was cleared from the property. Recommendations that staff recommend the city council approve the emergency abatement actions of the code enforcement officer conducted at 1004 Chris Lane. We've declared a substandard property on this. We haven't placed a lien at this time because we anticipate future activity at this residence because it continues to be vacant, so we're probably going to have to go back again and incur some additional costs.
Any questions from the audience concerning this? Council?
I just want to applaud the police department, and specifically Aaron, our code enforcement officer, for this very proactive approach to and legal approach to dealing with an eyesore, and every neighborhood seems like we've got one, that they just don't want to take care of their property, and this allows us to do it. And believe me, for all those who suffer in silence in a neighborhood because of the one in the middle like this, they really breathed a sigh of relief and thanks to the city for taking care of this. So thanks to everyone involved.
Any other comments from the council?
And I don't know, this is for Tom, I guess. Someone obviously owns the title to this house, is in control of it, you know, the mortgage company or bank or whoever, right?
I don't know, had it been foreclosed on, you know, Chief?
It is not foreclosed on, there is an actual owner for the property, and you send a notice to them.
Does he reside, he doesn't reside here?
They do not reside there. It's actually a relative of the resident who's currently incarcerated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the emergency abatement actions conducted by code enforcement at 1004 Chris Lane.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was 4-0. Assistant City Manager's Report, Waste Management Recycling Program.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Chris Kirk, the Assistant City Manager. If you'll recall from the night in which you approved the transfer of our city refuse franchise from then sanitation to waste management, we also discussed that at some point in the near future we would be implementing curbside recycling. The goal of the new recycling program is to provide each resident with a new cart, a second cart in addition to their existing trash cart, not to change their existing trash cart, and to do that at no additional cost. So we're providing more service at no additional cost to the resident. And tonight I've asked our partners at Waste Management, and specifically Sandra Persley and her team, to make a presentation to you tonight about the upcoming transition to curbside recycling that will begin in October. So if you would, they're bringing some new cans up to show you the difference between our recycling and our refuse cans. They have squeaky wheels. As we discussed at the last meeting when we talked about this topic, current refuse containers, trash containers, are already blue. And so even though in a lot of communities, blue is typically the recycling color, our trash carts are already blue, and so trying to distinguish the two with a black and blue lid will help hopefully make it pretty easy. We expect that this is going to be a very simple and straightforward transition for most people. Sandra's going to talk a little bit about how that's going to be done. And then, if the council is so inclined, we have a little interactive demonstration that we hope that you will participate in as we practice sorting some trash. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Sandra, and she can walk through the presentation for you.
So I wanted to jump out of here, but it was a safety violation for me to get it home. I'm just kidding, I did not want to jump out. Well, hello. Hello. We're going to play a sorting game when I'm done, and you have to get all of your recyclables into this little cart. Not really, but we brought a few extra in case somebody wants one. I'll put this right here. They're so popular. We will have more at our open house on the 25th that I'll tell you more about. But good evening, I'm Sandra Persley with Waste Management. I have Josh Mann over here, who's also with Waste Management. And then Larry Christie in the back, the very jovial, clown-looking fellow that's not serious at all in the back of the room. And you may recognize him, that's Larry Christie. Thank you so much for having us. I'm here to talk briefly about recycling and more to come. So, let's get recycling. Oh wait, you gave me this. Do I point it over here? I'm very prepared. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about what you need to know about recycling, what's changing, what does this mean for you, when is this happening, and then we'll have a Q&A. I want to point out right out of the gate that we are going to have an open house on the 25th. We'll have the carts on site. We'll have giveaways and beverages. If you didn't hear me back there, giveaway, beverages, desserts. We'd like to give you a hands-on opportunity to come in. There will be different stations, so you can learn more about waste management. You can learn more about recycling. You can learn more about the transition. If you have any compliments, you can come to my table. If you have any complaints, go to Larry's table. Just kidding, you can come to mine. I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, so I'm not scared of you. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about quickly. So what's changing? Right now you have one container. If you look over here to my lovely assistants, you have just the container with the black lid. It's very sad all by itself. You put everything in there. It does get sorted, but there's not a lot recycled from that process. The state doesn't love that process. The industry as a whole doesn't love that process. It worked well for the time, but like many things, especially what we've heard tonight, things have changed, and we are evolving, recycling is evolving with that. So that's what used to happen, one lonely, sad cart with not a lot of room and not a lot recovered. And now, 2 carts. You have twins, except one has a blue lid. So the bright blue lid, it says recycling only. You're welcome to come see it when I'm done. That's where you put your recyclables. We're going to talk more about what goes in there, but the beauty is we've now doubled your capacity and we have not doubled your rate. In fact, we haven't touched your rate. It's at no additional cost to you. You now have twice the capacity at your curb. If you are a super recycler and you just want to stay up all night and think of things to recycle, you can have 2 carts. Just call us. We will give you 2 recycling carts at no additional cost. So what's different? Your trash that's in the old lonely cart is going to go right to the landfill. It does not get sorted. Your recyclables will all be sorted, and the recovery rate, even though it seems like less is sorted, the recovery rate is actually a lot higher because the recyclables are much cleaner. This is becoming more and more important because as much as we don't like it, all of our recyclables go to China, and China is tightening and tightening the rules on what can be recycled. So this is low contamination, high recovery, and double your capacity at no additional cost. So what goes in that cart? Well, we used to say, if it's ooey gooey or chewy, put it in your trash, and everything else is recycling. Now we say, when in doubt, throw it out. So basically there are 3 easy rules. Clean, cardboard, paper, bottles, plastic, and glass can go in your recycling cart. Now I know water is a sensitive subject, so I get asked all the time, do I have to rinse my jar because I don't want to waste water? No. Scrape it out as best you can and then put it in your recycle bin. Now, if you still have something in the bottom, put it into the trash. If you don't want to empty it, put it into the trash, because when that gets smushed, your clean paper won't survive the trauma of your ketchup bottle. Because the ketchup's still inside of it. So clean paper, plastic bags, return those to your grocery store. They can recycle those or reuse them like I do. I keep a jar, I use them for everything. And then food and liquid, keep those out of your recycling container. So I made that sound long, but it's not. Number 1, clean paper, cardboard, glass, other things. 2, no plastic bags. 3, no food or liquid. So what does this mean for you? The first thing, why change? The state has, as many of you know, come up with many creative and interesting mandates that say we have to recycle more all the time. Like other things we've heard tonight, sometimes things happen and we don't love them, but they happen. So the state says that we have to do as best as we can here in the city of Tehachapi to recycle. We, along with the city and the county and the state, feel that these 2 carts is the best way to do that. What do you need to do to participate? Nothing. We will deliver a cart to you beginning next week. There will be information attached of what is allowed to go in there and when you should set it out. You don't have to do anything. You're going to get the cart. Is this mandatory? No, but it's at no additional cost, and we would love it if you at least gave it a try. You can keep it in your backyard and store your cans and bottles in there if you'd like. We don't recommend that, but you're welcome to it. It doesn't cost you anything, so we would hope that you would give it a shot. And then the last question we get a lot is that I already recycle, I'm a great recycler, do I have to do this? Again, you don't have to do it, but there are many other things that are recyclable, like paper, like cardboard, some plastics that don't have rebates. There are lots of things that you can recycle that you wouldn't take to a rebate center for a rebate. I feel like I should smile for YouTube. Hi, Mom. She's not watching. All right, so next steps. When is this happening? Well, we're here right now. This is the City Council presentation. In case you fell asleep, hello, it's the 18th. The next thing, the 25th, I mentioned the open house. It's going to be in the community room at the police department. We hope that you can make it. Like I mentioned, we will have games, we will have giveaways, we'll have food, very friendly. You know, only one of us fights. It's Josh. So careful at his table, but the rest of us are very nice, even Larry. September 25th to 29th, so that's next week already, we will be delivering your cart right to your door. You'll notice a plastic bag attached to it that has everything you need to know will be attached to that cart. You'll also get a postcard from us in the next couple of days that says, remember, recycling is coming, watch for your cart, this is your schedule. We're going to try to remind you with social media. It will be on the city's website. Waste Management is launching a Tehachapi specific website. So we're going to try to tell you as many ways as possible. And then starting, it says October 1st, but I believe it's the week of October 2nd. That's when recycling will start. Now, just important note, there will be a schedule. It's every other week. So you will either be Schedule 1, which will be October 9th, or Schedule 2, which will be October 9th. Don't be scared. There will be a map. You will get a postcard. We have the open house. We will tell you lots of times, YouTube, which week you will have. And with that, we have a question. We can do a Q&A, and then it's up to you, Chris, whether you'd like to play our very complicated game or answer questions first.
I think we'll go ahead and take questions if that's okay with the council, and then if the council wants to sort some trash for a little interactive feature, they can, and if not, we can continue on with the meeting. We'll leave that to your discretion. So.
Are there any questions from the audience concerning this fun presentation?
Thank you for calling me fun.
Don't leave, you get to answer.
I want to go away from the YouTube.
Yeah, okay.
Center.
Okay, I have a business with Black Can downtown. I do a lot of cardboard boxes. Now, do I get a blue can with Charles, who's my next door neighbor, who's a resident? Does he get a blue can? Or are we all considered commercial and don't get a blue can? Also, you guys advertise at Home Depot, I guess is going to sell a bag where you guys put your big construction material in. Are you guys going to do that in town also? I guess you come out with the crane and lift it up with the canvas construction bag. Is that going to be available to the residents of that?
As it relates to recycling, right now what we're doing is residential recycling. Recycling will be available to businesses. Waste Management, of course, because of the nature of their business, they're way better at this than we are, of course, right? And they have a lot of programs, some of which we will implement here, I'm sure, as we move forward, some of which we may choose not to if they don't fit our community. But right now we're talking about residential recycling. As for the big bags, I'll let Sandra address that one.
The bag you're talking about, thank you for your questions, is called the Bagster. It's a dumpster in a bag. It holds the amount that you would get in a 3-year dumpster within a bag. There's straps, you pick it up. Very clever, very convenient. You buy them at like a Home Depot hardware store. I don't know, I think the bag's $40 or less. And then disclaimer, you do pay for the haul after you buy that bag. It is a specialized truck with a boom. It is something that we could offer here. We have a truck nearby in the Antelope Valley. If there were the interest, we would certainly be open to offering it.
Any other questions?
A lot of people in town think of recycling as making money, so they turn their cans and bottles and stuff to make money. Is that option still going to be available as far as?
Yes, absolutely. We support fundraisers for Little League or office parties, whatever you'd like to do, as long as you're recycling, we're happy. So if you're currently saving your cans and bottles and you want to take those to a redemption center, by all means, but we would ask that you put your clean paper, cardboard, glass, and all of the other material that does not have a rebate value into your new recycling cart with the royal blue lid. So yes.
Any other questions from the audience? Council?
I have one. You said your open house is the 25th?
Yes, sir.
That's the day after opening season for deer, so good luck having Larry there.
We're also the chamber event on the 27th, so.
Are we? Oh, yes. The Chamber Business Expo on the 27th. We will also be there answering any questions. And I'm going to wear orange just in case Larry gets confused on the 25th.
I only have one question. I have 2 cans that I paid Ben's $5 a month for, 2 black cans, because I have my own personal can in the backyard, and I put green waste in there. And then when my grandkids show up, they dump it into the extra can and life goes on. So now I will only have 1 can to do all that in and then put my recyclables in the other. Is that correct?
If you have 2 cans for trash currently, you will maintain that. We aren't making any changes to your current trash level.
Okay.
Now, once you have the recycling cart, if you decide, well, golly, I have so much room, I don't need to pay extra for this extra trash cart, absolutely call us, we'll remove that, we'll lower your bill.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone?
Real quick, when's the open house? What time on the 25th?
6.
6 days.
6 to 8.
PM.
PM, yes. I do get it early though, if you want to switch it.
Just a little survey, show of hands, everyone's got these cans here. How many are happy with the cans that you have? Basically, all right, I don't see anybody. When we went from metal cans to these, you wouldn't believe the resistance that we got from customers. Oh no, oh my God, you're not gonna let me have my 30-gallon galvanized 50-pound empty can, and you're gonna make me do this. Wheels, it's gonna be stinky in my garage. You wouldn't have believed the resistance that we had. And they thought, well, it's gonna be way too heavy for an elderly person to move around. So in the break that we had between, we had a little intermission, I did jump in one. I was the mayor at the time, so I jumped in one of the cans. And we had, I think it was Mrs. Leva, who was 81 at the time, roll me around the room. It was in the Californian. It had a trash can like that with there was a shadow right here with 2 little white eyes sticking out, and it said "Mayor walking, talking trash." So anyway, we will embrace this change. I think it won't be that bad, and I think it's going to be good for the community. But I had to add that in there. So anyway, I always got a story.
I am not jumping in a can. So if there aren't any other questions, then, huh? Did you have a comment? No. Oh, so I guess you can go on with your trash game.
I need 2 volunteers, and if you'd like to work in teams, since there are 4 of you tonight, I don't want to put anyone under the gun here, but if you'd like to work in teams, we have a sorting game. And you win a very good prize of our utmost respect. So we can move the podium if anybody wants to come play the sorting game.
Volunteers, it doesn't have to be council.
Yeah,
It can be staff.
anyone can come play the sorting game. Or I can put on a blindfold and sort for you. Well, how about I'll point out some of the tricky items.
Okay.
Okay.
Obviously, no one wants to play trash games.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing you should know, I better go into the mic. So the first thing that you should know about recycling before we sort is that people get angry sometimes because there's a recycling symbol, and I think we have an example, and they say, well, it has a symbol, why isn't it recyclable? What makes something recyclable is someone at the end of the day wants to buy it and turn it into something else. And sometimes virgin material, especially here in the United States, is much cheaper than recycled material. So you will see those symbols on certain items. Don't be fooled, stick to the 3 rules that we talked about, the rules that would be in the education that we provide. But if you get it wrong, we won't arrest you. You may get a friendly notice on your cart with a cute little emoji that says, oops, you got it wrong, try to do better.
So we've got, one of these is marked trash, so this is the trash one. Recycling.
So I got it right. Now, if this had a blue lid, we'd be in good shape. So bottles like this, you know, plastic jars like this is recyclable. Clean cardboard, if you remember the rules, recyclable. Plastic bags, does anybody remember?
Yeah.
Very good. Points for you. You have my respect. Well, you had it when you got at the cars, so. All right, what about junk mail and old magazines? Do you guys think this is trash? Recycling? Very good. Okay, recycling.
What about if it's shredded?
Yeah.
What about if it was shredded?
If it's shredded, you can put it in your recycling cart, but we have a separate shredding route, or you can take your shredding over to the yard on Denison. It's our preference, because it's windy here, that you not put it in your cart, because it's really messy for you and your neighbors, really, once it gets tipped. So you can put it in there, you won't get in trouble, but it's not the cleanest option.
Okay.
We should advertise that service, free. Is a shredding service free?
No, not for businesses.
Or
But for dropping it off, yes.
for a resident, they've got a comment is done, and it's shredded, take it over there.
It doesn't take it already shredded.
No, I've got some books, or I've got some bills, I want shredded, I can drop it off and it'll be shredded.
No.
As a resident.
Take it shredded at home, and you could take the paper shreddings and drop them off. Right.
Free shredded stuff may be delivered.
Right. I don't want to accidentally peek at your bill if you ask me to shred it.
Okay.
All right. Styrofoam. So this is a point of contention in a lot of places because it does have recycling symbols. It is not recyclable. Please put this in your trash. Because again, I mentioned that what makes something recyclable is whether or not somebody wants to buy this. It's very cheap, virgin material. Can you imagine a boat full of styrofoam going across the ocean to China? No.
What do you say?
Styrofoam, please put it in your trash. Okay, batteries.
No.
Batteries.
No.
Very good. E-waste, right. So for e-waste, wait for a roundup, or I'm told that you can take them to the Tehachapi landfill at no additional charge. A glass jar.
Yes.
Recyclable. Now I get a question a lot of times of, do I have to take off the lid? Because a lot of buyback centers have you take off the lid because of weight. You do not have to take off the lid. You can leave it on.
Nope.
Oh yeah, I'm fired. A bottle? Sorry. It's tricky because it's bleach, but this is recyclable. You guys are tricking me with these pictures. I only want one chin, YouTube. All right, let's see. Oh, the Tehachapi News, after you've read it thoroughly many, many times, is this trash or recycling? Oh, it's recycling. Oh wait, so this one's a trick. Remember we talked about recyclables that have a little bit of something left in them. So this has fluid in it, so do you think that this is trash or recycling?
Right.
Correct. Now because it's water, you can water your plant and then recycle it. We have a mouse. Very good, you guys cannot be fooled. A plastic food container. It is. This is recyclable, but I mentioned China changed the rules. It probably won't be recyclable for long, but
It's recyclable, yes.
put it in your recycling. Strike that from the record. What about this?
Yes.
Okay, do you have to take off the lid? Very good. And then this is a real apple, ladies and gentlemen. I ate it on the way. Do you think that this real apple that is not at all recyclable paper, does this go in your trash or recycling? Trash. Very good. So remember, if it's dry, paper, cardboard, plastic, it goes in here. If it's wet or styrofoam or food, it goes in your trash. So I do get one more question. I do get a lot of questions about the pizza box. I always say it depends on your pizza. My pizza isn't very greasy, and so the box is fairly clean when I'm done with it. If you like really delicious pizza, that's not like mine, that the box has a ring of shame from the grease, put it in the trash. Okay.
Thank you.
That's it. That concludes my game. Any other? We good?
Oh, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to partying with you on September 25th.
I'm so much more fun at the open house. Just wait.
Okay, thank you. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Wiggins. I wanted to thank Sandra, Larry, and Josh, Chris, and staff. This has been a little bit of a journey, that's for sure. It's a change, and change sometimes is a little frustrating. But I can say that Waste Management has done an exceptional job working with our staff at the city. And they continue to communicate well with us. And once again, as Councilmember Smith pointed out, we will be leading the charge and leading the efforts in the state of California. So look forward to the change and embracing it. And if you have any questions, obviously, please call us. We want to make sure the transition is as smooth as possible. That's for sure. So we have a short video that we'd like to put together. Before we hit play, actually, I want to introduce Key, and maybe Key can say a few words about this. But we had an amazing event this last weekend, as we do nearly every weekend. Just about 2 weeks ago, Touch Free Society pilots had their Young Eagles flights, and last weekend we had a fiddler contest, and I could go on and on and on and keep you here all night. The point is, we have amazing people doing amazing things. Volunteers, serving volunteers, quite frankly. The Fondale was a fun day, obviously, a lot of work, sun up to sundown for most of us. Participants had a lot of fun, but also it was a reason to get together. And our public safety officers, Texas Police Department, Kern County Sheriff, I've mentioned this many times, we worked together that day. Really important to be able to know and understand your public safety partners in the entire valley. So we did that. It went off without a hitch. It was a great day. So Key, why don't you introduce this? It's a short video, 6 minutes long. Introduce the video for the council.
Really, the video will be really self-explanatory. The big thing, if you haven't been out at the starting line when Fondo starts, when you hear 1,000 riders, it's like, wow, that's a lot. But it took 6.5 minutes to clear the line.
Wow. So
what you'll see is the start, and then in the corner you'll actually hear some testimonials, if you will, some people I went out and talked to after their ride out on the course, what their perceptions were of the entire greater Tehachapi area. So you get a perspective of the actual participants, and you'll actually find out that they're not all from Tehachapi.
Corey Lockwood. Ladies and gentlemen, have a fabulous day. Stay safe. They embark on a journey. Some bigger than others, but all of them are winners today.
Tell me about your Fondo experience so far. You're early on.
It's cold, but it's fun. I like the cool weather. It's great.
Is it your first Fondo?
No, I've been here every year.
Awesome.
It's my third one.
And what are you looking forward to today?
Finishing.
What are you looking forward to for your Fondo experience overall?
Meeting my old time.
How many Fondos have you done?
This would be my fourth.
You've been here every year.
Yes.
Awesome. You guys have a great time. Enjoy yourselves.
Thank you so much.
This is my second Fondo with Lehigh.
And what are you expecting today?
To finish.
To finish? How far are you going?
104.
Awesome. And how much have you been training for this?
About 3,000 miles this year, since last year.
That's a pretty good commitment.
In the cycling world, that's small, but it's fun. I love it.
Okay. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Hold on. Best thing about cycling, I beat type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and I've lost 50 pounds. Get on your bike.
All right.
Awesome. What's the experience like so far?
Oh, fantastic. It's our first real race, so it's been great.
You volunteer a lot in the community.
Yes.
What drives you to do that?
We love the community. We love living up here. That's why we moved up here. When we lived in Orange County, we could never do this. People don't talk to each other, and if you smile, you get a hard look. So when we moved up here, that was one of our things, is that we wanted to be involved in the community because we want to make it someplace we want to live.
So how was your condo today?
I liked it. Really, really good.
How far did you guys go?
I've seen more kids like out of the mountain bike club here that were riding very good today, and so it was neat to be able to have an impression on them and have them come out onto the road and give me a run on the KOM.
Awesome.
Neat and really fun to ride. You did a good job today.
How was it out there? How was it?
It was good.
Yeah.
I'm just a little out of shape, that's all.
How far did you go?
18.
Awesome.
So I'm happy, super happy.
First Fondo?
Second Fondo, but I've helped every year. So essentially I've done something every year. So thanks.
Tell us about your Fondo experience today.
Good first time. Great. I'm going to do it again next year for sure.
Well, how far did you go today?
38 miles.
Hey, tell me about Fondo today. How was it?
It was a good Fondo. A little windy at the end. Awesome.
Good crowd, good crowd.
You're 11 years old. Is this your first Fondo, or have you done this before?
First Fondo.
And where are y'all from?
I'm from Roseman's.
Okay.
Feeling.
Feeling?
So this is pretty intense. Good road. Yeah. But then the way down, oh my god, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know? I love it down there. You know, it's always super fun time out here. I always appreciate coming out at the end of the season, doing this ride. Whole community comes together, great weather, great riding, and you know, it's always just a fun time.
Hey, tell us about your Fondo experience so far. It's early on, but you've been out on the course for a couple miles. What's it like?
Great. It's really good. The weather's awesome. Great riders out here. Very well organized. Very happy to be here.
So early on, you've been out on the course for a few miles. What's it like?
She's really smooth. I really like it. I mean, I've done a couple of races and so far it's something that I think the whole event, just being with everybody going to the same goal, and that's just finishing the race and having a good time. And I want to do the next year. I want to make it to 100 miles.
You know, it's such a pleasure, like I said, to come out here and share what I love to do with people, and I'm fortunate to have a great community that puts on a fantastic event like this. And I want to fuel day and ride bikes. Like I said, share what I like to do with the community that serves.
And this is, you've done all four now? And how far did you go today? Your third one.
My first one.
So you got recruited, and today this is your first Fondo? Awesome. What are you looking forward to today?
Finish it. I'm a recruiter.
Oh, that's part of TMTA. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So today it's early on. How's it been so far?
Good. I mean, it was a beautiful day. I mean, it wasn't quite as hot. There was a little more of a breeze. So, I mean, it just came down to how you guys you were second really one time.
So tell me about your Fondo experience today.
Oh, it's fantastic.
The early registration, the free jersey that comes with the early registration, the discount, one of the best rides around. 100, the 85, the 60, or the 38.
And how far are you guys going today? 38. Awesome. Beautiful.
One thing I can say too is that you guys are very accommodating because to check your jacket, never had done that on anybody.
Right.
I didn't know myself, so I probably pushed myself harder than I would. I thought I was going to take it easy.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
How far did you go today?
I did 60.
Nice. Were the conditions okay?
It was a perfect day for cycling.
Where do you guys come from?
Bakersfield? Boston. Yeah.
Have you ever ridden the Fondo before?
No, first time. First time.
The best supporting ride I've ever been on.
And how long have you been cycling?
35 years.
And this, your Fondo is the best.
Best supporting ride I've ever been
Where's your hat? Where are you going?
San Diego.
So what does this mean for the city of Tehachapi to host something like this?
For the city of Tehachapi, we got into this in the first place to bring people to Tehachapi, to share the mountain environment that we have, that we call home, that we're so proud of. It's a great place to cycle. So the more people we get to Tehachapi to experience the mountains, to experience the downtown, to experience all the different communities that make up Tehachapi, it just helps elevate us a little bit more.
So, thank you, Pete. We quickly put that together. We thought you might enjoy it. Again, thanks to all the volunteers. We'll have a check presentation ceremony in the next meeting or 2 or 3. Once we get all the bills paid and everything is set, then we'll start a check presentation ceremony here in this room, thanking all the participants and the volunteers. And that's all that I have this evening. Thank you.
All right. Concerning that, the only thing I have to say is that I'm on a worship team at church, so I get there earlier than some of the other people. And there's a 12-year-old kid who plays the drums, and he had this kid with him, and he said, "Ask him what he did yesterday." I said, "Okay, what'd you do yesterday?" He said, "I rode in that bike thing." I go, "Cool." And it probably was one of those younger kids, but he didn't have a helmet on when I saw him. I said, "Really, how far did you ride?" He goes, 38. And I said, "By yourself?" He said, "No, me and my dad." And I said, "Are you sore today?" He goes, "Yes, ma'am." So it makes me feel really old and stupid that I'm not on a bike yet, but anyways. Mr. Hickey.
I have nothing tonight, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Good meeting.
All right, it was a wonderful meeting, and with that, we have no closed session. We're going to adjourn. Thank you.